All right, so this is, you know, the webbot talked about there's coming a time in the near future where it just appears from the data it gets, the webbot, that the rigging mechanism, whatever it is that rigs the precious metals markets, namely silver, just kind of stops, or they don't want to do it anymore, or etc. So this is interesting because there's only like 5 banks or so, and it's the too big to fail banks, that set what is called the London PM fix. There's gold and silver fix. It has to do with price setting. And it says German banking giant Deutsche Bank announced yesterday that it will be resigning from both the London gold fixing and London silver fixing panels, and that it is withdrawing without having found a buyer for either of its seats on the representative panels. So they tried to find a buyer to say, hey, take our position, we're leaving. And nobody would step up, no other bank would step up and say, yeah, we'll get in on that. So they're resigning without finding someone, and I believe it's somewhere around the 7th, May 7th or May 9th, somewhere around there. Actually, May 13th. So that's one thing, okay? Hang on. Yeah, you can just set it on the door. Thanks. So, the other thing, and this is a very interesting one. This is from Bix Weir, and I've verified this. The CFTC, or not CFTC, the COMEX, ran by the CME group, which again is the banker club. He says more evidence that the multi-decade price suppression of gold and silver is about to come to a violent end was announced today by the CME, who runs the COMEX. Basically, after years of allowing the price of the precious metals to be slammed downward in violent crashes with heavy moves, they are now going to implement what they are calling price controls aimed at curbing any violent moves, both upward and downward. So all these years, decades, they've allowed these violent moves. Because why? Because they were always down. They always smashed the price down in these violent moves. There was never a violent move up. There were a few times in the last 3 years, very few, where we did have a pretty good move up, but it wasn't a violent move up like the violent move downs that we've seen. So now all of a sudden they want to implement this thing that they're calling price controls. You don't suppose that they're gearing up for the moonshot of precious metal prices, namely, again, silver in this case, gold too, and that they don't want it to explode upward now that the rigging operations are coming down to settle down, and they know the real price is about to be set. So rather than have it skyrocket out of control, like they allowed it to go downward out of control, they're going to implement price controls so that when it does start to scream upwards, CME Group has just stopped trading. They're implementing their price control mechanism. You can't trade right now because the price violently rose up too quickly. I'm not sure how they're going to do it. It just said that. U.S. Futures Exchange, CME Group, Inc. is considering the introduction of daily limits on price moves in gold and silver futures in a bid to rein in wild volatility that has spooked investors in recent years, a CME official said on Tuesday. The biggest concern for the exchange is the array of sophisticated trading programs that are capable of significantly pushing the market higher or lower, Vias said. Oh, you mean like high-frequency trading, where they stuff these fake orders, a huge order coming to sell. Oh no, all the other high-frequency traders see the sell order, they all start selling, and then the original seller backs off and doesn't sell. Or they go ahead and go through with it and sell as well. That's called causing a stampede. Unlike the meteoric declines in April and June, when institutional investors exited en masse in a 2-day sell-off, these seemingly sporadic trades, I guess he's talking about last year, these seemingly sporadic trades lasted only minutes, but overwhelmed volumes and price direction on each occasion. So Big says, ha 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 ha, it took the CME 40 years to figure out that markets are rigged by computer programs. Morons. Actually, although there are many morons, some are just corrupt and part of the rigging con game. So timing is everything, and now is the time. Tomorrow, May 1st, is the 3-year anniversary of the silver drive-by shooting, if you will, from 2011, when the bad guys slammed silver down from $50 an ounce to $35 in just a matter of days. It started in the after-hours market on a Sunday night, and there was blood in the streets for months to follow, so to speak. The CME did their part by raising silver margins right in the middle of that happening, which I did videos on it while the price was being slammed, right? While the price was being slammed down, not on the way up, on the way down, CME Group says we're now raising margin requirements on all contracts. And by the way, today's Friday night, markets are closed. You've got to be in compliance Monday morning. Oh, well, Saturday, Sunday, the markets are closed. So you're telling us Friday night we got to be in compliance by like Monday. Sometimes they would say like maybe it was Tuesday. Okay, we have 1 day to be in compliance. In other words, all open positions, you now have to add more money to your account to meet the new margin requirements, which could be thousands and thousands and thousands of dollars for a lot of people. Could be tens of thousands, hundreds of thousands, even millions of dollars for other institutional players or commercial accounts, if you will. All of which say, no, we're not doing that, because if we did do that, not everybody's going to do that. And because they're not doing it, they're going to have to liquidate their account, sell it off, which means the market price is going to go down. So we're going to sit onto these things while the price is going down because these other people didn't want to add more money to their margin account. We'd be stupid to do that because we're going to take a hit, so we also have to sell. So everybody freaking sells to meet the new margin requirement of CME Group. And there's a bloodbath the next day, right? That's what happened. I remember doing the videos on it. So he says, of course, the entire operation was run and orchestrated by our friends over at JP Morgan using their, quote, SWAT team, henchman Bill Daley, Obama's chief of staff at that time, by the way. I posted a few full analysis of the event in the days following the crash. Private road members can find it in the Road to Ruta archives here, and he lists it. He says, it's clear to me and anyone that has been on this road for long enough that the final battle is on, and you should be ready for anything to happen anytime. Stay safe. He's absolutely right. Absolutely right. And again, there's no chance in hell that right now they're just deciding we're going to put price controls in now so that the price, the price is already $19 an ounce. When's the last time you saw $19 silver, right? You're going to put price controls in now? It would make more sense if silver jumped back up into the 30s, even in the 30s, and didn't go any higher. And then have the CME Group come out and say, we are implementing these price controls now. That way the rest of us could say, oh, good, because they're going to try to slam it back down to the 20s again. And this will probably stop that because they're not going to be able to just dump a bunch of orders all at once because of the new CME Group's rule. But no, that didn't happen. They're doing it when silver's $19 an ounce. Huh. Why? Because silver can really only go up from here. That's why. And they don't want it skyrocketing too fast so that everyone in the world sees it and says, hey, I thought you guys said, I thought the mainstream and all the experts and all the smartest guys in the room, every news channel I ever turned on talked about why gold and silver were bad investments, and we told you so, and hey, why did it just skyrocket today? Can't have that. They want a managed increase in price. And they're not going to be able to have a managed increase in price if their rigging operations are being halted. Exactly like I said, Deutsche Bank, we're stepping down from this table. There's probably going to be another bank that ends up stepping down from the London PM fix. Right? These guys are all in collusion with each other. They're all in the same group. They're all pals. They all work together. It's the club. As I've said a million times, it is the club. And only club members are allowed to do this, because only club members will defraud the American people and the world knowingly and willingly, because they are only because they are part of the club. You get any legitimate person in there that goes in any of these regulators or whatever, a legitimate person is going to go in there and immediately notice, hey, there's something going on here. This looks like the whole market's rigged, as a matter of fact. And then someone's going to whisper in their ear, sir, that's exactly the case. It's been rigged since the 1980s at least. And we have to do that now. We've got this thing called the President's Working Group on Financial Matters, also known as the Plunge Protection Team online. And they have a direct account with JP Morgan Chase. They use them as their broker, and they move the market, all markets, through them. So JP Morgan wasn't lying when they said we have a client. We don't short the market, but we have a client that just might. And we do their bidding because they're our client. Right? That was their defense. And as much as it pained me to say, yeah, right, you guys are the riggers the whole time, it very well could be true, but the question then remains, who's the client? Is it the American government? Or is it just some other, maybe the Rockefeller's personal account rigging it? There's no telling. But when you see those bankers getting into government positions, and then the government employees going back into the banking system after they retire or step down or work there for a few years, it's obvious it's a revolving door, and hey, here's your bonus for looking the other way while we were rigging the markets. Now you get a nice hefty paying job over here, and there's a new regulator who took your place, in this case, Miss Joanne White, or whatever her name is, Security and Exchange regulator, who's also looking the other way, as everyone predicted from the get-go. Nothing, meet the new boss, same as the old boss. And as soon as she leaves, guess where she's going? She's going to be going to one of the big banks. Goldman Sachs, JP Morgan, etc. They got a nice position there for her. You should not be allowed, if you are a regulator, to ever go and work in the industry as a physical business, at a physical business that you've regulated. Doesn't make sense. But in this world, in this country, up is down, left is right, right is left, down is up, everything's backwards, wrong is right, morals are bad, being moralist is good, etc. And then I read the Supreme Court refuses to take up even looking at the case in which an appellate court decided that 2014 National Defense Authorization Act that Congress passed, yes, Congress, Senate, and the President, keep in mind, I have to say that because they're full of Democrats, they're full of Republicans, and they collectively passed that law. And in it was what critics said, hey, this looks like indefinite detention of an American citizen. No due process of law, just because the executive branch deems them possibly, maybe, working with terrorist groups. For any reason they come up with. That doesn't sound right. So they file a lawsuit. Appellate court says, no, they can do that. They can detain you indefinitely with no due process. So they said, well, let's go to the Supreme Court on this. And the Supreme Court has just very recently, as in yesterday, I think, said we're not even going to see the case. So in other words, the appellate court, lower court's decision will stand. We're not even going to look at it. We don't have time for that. We're busy. They didn't say that, but bottom line is they're not going to look at it. They don't want to look at it because they know the true answer is yes, that's completely unconstitutional. And someone commented and said, it's amazing that over 200 and something years now, we've had due process, right to trial, right to an attorney, right to be in front of a jury of our peers to make that decision against us. And in one day, it's gone. We've had it for 200 and something years, and then as of Tuesday or Wednesday, whatever it was, it is now gone. Just like that. So when people say, I know my rights, I know my freedoms, I'm going to tell you something you didn't know. You did not know this. You never, ever had a freedom. You only had a privilege. And privileges can be taken away, whereas freedoms cannot. And they just took that away from you. So due process of law is now a fact. You have none of it if the executive branch deems you a terrorist. And all that it will take is someone protesting, a group of people protesting at the wrong place where the government really doesn't want you there right now. You're exposing something that they really don't want you exposing. You're pissing them off. And they're going to say this is a matter of national security here. We understand you want to protest, but we're having a meeting inside that's of national security importance, and you're inhibiting that. Therefore, because you're inhibiting our national security, you are labeled as a, potentially helping terrorists, indefinite detention. And what would probably happen is they will detain those people and then tell them while they're detained, hey bozo, we can detain you as long as we want. However, if you're willing to leave and not go back to that place, we'll let you off. Otherwise, you can sit here. You won't see an attorney, you're not going to see your family, you're not going to do nothing. We're going to put you in the hole, so to speak, and let you rot for a while and see what you think about that. Why? Because that is a typical detain and release policy that all previous dictators did when they were coming into power, stripping all the people, citizens of their country, of their rights, their freedoms, etc. Changing the laws, just like Hitler did, just like Mao did, just like Mussolini did. Right? They all do it. And if you listen to Naomi Wolf's 10 Steps to Dictatorship, I think that's what it's titled, she goes through all of these things. And one of the policies that all of these would-be dictators followed, it's like a blueprint, right? These 10 steps. One of those 10 steps was a detain and release policy. And with the National Defense Authorization Act of 2014 solidly passed as law, they don't have to pass it again. They don't have to have a 2015 National Defense Authorization Act. They can do it to authorize other things, but the 2014 one already made it law to where they can detain you, so they don't have to continue that. It's a done deal. And once a law is a done deal, they're focusing on other stuff. They're not looking backwards. Once a law is passed, it almost never gets undone. Literally, like almost never. So you have all these laws that got passed previously that no one remembers, they forgot about. You know, National Defense Authorization Act is going to be one of them, etc. So now it's going to be harder to protest in the country where protesting should be cheered on. Hey, you get to do that. This is America. We're glad to see protesters because that just shows us that all of our rights and freedoms are intact. Privileges, not rights or freedoms, privileges. Because a privilege can be taken away, a right and freedom cannot.